What's up, everyone? Live from the Toyota Lounge here at the DNVR bar. Welcome to TDSP, the Denver Sports Podcast. I am your host, Christian Saez, joined by a very special guest, Hank, hanging out with me in studio today. Gonna get a little switcheroo though halfway through the show, as you've got some stuff to take care of later today at the Broncos Stadium. It's a busy week right now for all of our sports out here. And we're going to talk about last weekend because it was a somber weekend. And look, I got to say before we start that, you know this. We're not in the business usually of talking negatively about, our teams. We're a positive company. We like to bring out the positive vibes out here. But my God, the sports teams in Colorado made it hard for us to actually have positive vibes last weekend.
Yeah.
I can't think of a collectively worse weekend where almost every single team lost, pretty much all in pretty challenging fashion, all at the same time over the weekend.
No, yeah, I mean, it was terrible. I mean, the Buffs basically, I guess they didn't quite end their season-long hopes, but they probably have to win out to do anything that matters. The Broncos look terrible. I mean, that looks like an awful team right now. And the offense. The defense was still fine.
Sure.
The Avs are garbage. They're rolling out like an AHL all-star team there for half the game. And
dude, it's weird, man.
It's rough.
Two out of the three main teams, and I'm including CU in that, just given the CU audience. Two out of the three main teams, the Avalanche and the Broncos, got booed by their home fans in a game, here in Denver, which is something that we saw last year out of, the Broncos, given some of the issues between Russell Wilson and Coach Payton. But to see that happen this early into the tenure, and especially for the Avs, booing, after just one game at home, it's rough. It's rough. Now, I will shine some positive light. If you're a CSU fan, your team got a win. CSU football picked up a win over San Jose State. And Northern Colorado got their first win in a year and a half, beating Weber State. So those are our two teams holding down the wins, which is usually the opposite here in Colorado. But I want to say first, let's talk about vibes. What felt worse? Because I know you cover the Broncos. You've also covered the Buffs. You were a student at the Buffs at CU. What felt worse vibe-wise this weekend out of all three of those losses, the main sports losses?
Probably the Broncos.
Yeah.
I mean, the tough thing is, if we combined all three of the Avs games together into one and called it one thing, then maybe that could win. It's just tough when, we knew coming into the weekend that things were not going well for the Avs, and so it didn't have the shock value anymore. Yeah. I went to the game last night, and you're just like, well, there they are. They're doing the same horrible things they've been doing. It's not a good hockey team right now.
Yeah.
It just, Nate's out there getting all frustrated because he's the only guy who does anything. Even Kale stinks right now. I mean, as he's admitted. So, you've got that going on, but it's an 82-game season. It's no big deal. For the Broncos, though, I mean, that was the one that could have separated you. It could have been 2 games over 500 this late in the season for the first time since 2016. 2 more winnable games coming up before you get the 2 tough ones. The whole season was in front of them. And the Buffs, I think expectations maybe were just a touch lower for that individual game.
Sure.
Just because Kansas State is,
they're Kansas State.
Were they
They're
picked to be second in the Big 12?
Yeah. And they were, what were they ranked going into that game? Was it?
I'm not sure exactly.
I don't remember what their ranking was. 18th?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think it was 18th. Yeah, no, and I think the letdown of this weekend was the fact that it came into the weekend and we felt like the vibes are high. CU has a chance to go beat a ranked opponent. The Broncos are playing a very beatable Chargers team at home after a very good Raiders win.
Yep.
And the Avs, despite the struggles that they had in their season opener, they were coming back home, and you think, okay, Ball Arena is going to be lit, everyone's going to be hyped, we're going to be ready to go, and it just was a letdown on all fronts. I want to talk, though, because you and I mentioned this right before we jumped on the show. We're talking about how the Broncos offense is struggling, and, you guys have talked about that a ton, obviously, on your show. But I brought up the point to you of, have we as Broncos fans had this thought process of what things would look like right now if Aaron Rodgers had ended up being the quarterback
comes up a lot.
of the Broncos?
Yep.
Because, we know we've seen what's going on with the Jets right now. Devontae Adams going over to New York, and the whole Aaron Rodgers post-game comments and the issues that they have. The vibes would be a lot different if Aaron Rodgers was playing in a Broncos uniform right now. So maybe we have it better by saying, hey, it's just a rookie quarterback. There's some growing pains. We can still hope for better in the future than if we had a toxic quarterback in possibly Aaron Rodgers at the helm, or even Russell Wilson. So, the silver lining is these seem like growing pains from Bo Nix right now with the Broncos.
Yeah, you just want to see some good out of him. Yeah. You're still waiting to see here's what it looks like if this all works out. Because so far it's only been pains, and there haven't really been many highlights.
Yeah.
So that's the tough part. And so with Rodgers, he would have come over in 2022 because he would have come over with Hackett.
Yeah.
So that
would have been a whole other thing.
It would have gone horribly that first year. Rodgers probably would have defended Hackett. Maybe not. I mean, he might have thrown him under the bus immediately. So you have to imagine that first year with Hackett, though, at the very least, doesn't go well. Then the next year they make a change, and Rodgers is probably picking his coach, which is never a good thing. But who knows if he picks Sean Payton or who he picks?
Yeah. Well,
it would have been bad somehow. It just definitely would have been different bad.
And we could play the what if game. There's that whole idea of, well, what if Aaron Rodgers was a Bronco, would he have not gotten injured in his, that could have changed the trajectory of his career as well.
Yeah.
So we could play the whole what if game, but the silver lining again is, you could be in a different spot. The Broncos were also 1-5 through 6 games last year at this point last season. So one of my buddies who's been on the Rockies pod with me a couple times tweeted out, he's a diehard Broncos fan, and he said, yeah, hey, the sky isn't falling. Yes, it feels like that. And I think the frustration for Broncos fans is it's not fun football right now. And that's the hardest part is if you're losing games, like CU lost their game to Kansas State, that was a 31-28 kind of slugfest. There were some mistakes made, by CU obviously that need to be pointed out, but that was a slugfest. CU played an interesting game. They kept it tight. It just felt like the Broncos game wasn't really interesting. Marissa even went to the Broncos game, and she was texting me this is the most boring game I've ever watched offensively. And so Broncos fans hate that. I want to ask you, because I know you probably talked about this on the show, but I want to ask you for my own personal reasons. What were your thoughts on the uniform combos? Are you in or out on those combos?
They're terrible.
That's what I thought.
They're terrible.
I'm the vibes were great after the throwbacks, and then you go and you just put that garbage out there on the field from a playing standpoint and from a look standpoint. Do they ever bring those back? I can't imagine they do.
I bet they will.
I'm sure they will.
I think technically you're supposed to keep the uniform sets for 5 years before you can change them. I think some teams have found a way around that.
God.
But yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of that, and they'll mix things up. And the whole thing is terrible. So they wanted to make them modular, which means you can change all the things out. Personally, I think that's dumb for a lot of reasons. The big one being that you can only wear alternate helmets. You can only wear the white alternate helmet when you wear the blue alternate jersey. So you can't use a normal jersey with an alternate helmet. And you can only wear alternates 3 total times throughout the season. 2 of those go to the throwbacks.
Sure.
Probably should just be 3. So once a year, you get to use the blue jerseys with the white helmets. And the rest of the year, you don't even see those. So what was the point of making everything so mix and match when you can't even mix and match anyway?
The only positive I had towards that uniform combo was the fact that the seats, the seats around that lower concourse are blue, and so it kind of had the matching with the shade of blue on the seats. That's the only positive, and that only looks good when there's no fans in the stands. During warm-ups and stuff when you're okay,
and the
cool.
fourth quarter
after fans had left. But in the moment in the game itself, it's just not the same vibe. So yeah, I felt like the vibes were off for the Broncos. It was a weird situation all around.
A disaster.
They've got a lot to prove. have we gotten updates on Pat Surtain's situation for Thursday?
He won't play Thursday.
He's not. So
It'd be
he's
a surprise.
official.
Yeah, I mean, I think I
figured
when you go into the concussion protocol, I think you can only go through like one stage per day or something.
Yeah.
So it just you can't get out in time.
God,
that's not good.
And that literally set the tone for the rest of the game. Pat Surtain goes out. I mean, you throw an interception on the first few plays of the game. Pat Surtain goes out on the back end of that drive, and like the air is sucked out of the stadium.
Yep.
So Thursday's going to be a big test. Going out to New Orleans, the homecoming for Sean, but it's going to be a big test, I think, also to like prove to Broncos fans that there is some hope, that we have this light coming up, to stay involved through the rest of the season. I just think the biggest threat is this idea that like you could repeat the boringness of last year.
And
I feel
the
like
year before and the year before and the year before.
Yeah. And I feel like that wasn't the case for the last few games where we were like, okay, Bo Nix looked better. The offense looked better. Like things were feeling a little bit more cohesive. So it's a big test here on Thursday.
The big thing for the Broncos right now is that they just only have one way to win, and that's for the defense to play incredibly well and hold the other team to like 13 points.
Yeah.
And Sean Payton talks about it a lot. Like there are a bunch of different types of game, and you have to be able to find ways to win different games, but the only way they can win football games is if the defense is incredible. Because even when the offenses look good, I'm not sure what the stats are after this week, but going into last week, their average touchdown drive started at their own 48-yard line. So on average, it's a 52-yard drive. That's the shortest average touchdown drive of any team in the league.
Yeah.
Like league average is like you're 33. Like just you start wherever and go. When the Broncos find a way to get a touchdown, it's because they're set up right there. I mean, because of some of those things, because of the defense playing at like a historic pace. I mean, there were 4 points per game better than the Super Bowl defense from like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That obviously wasn't sustainable. Like you're going to need the offense to do more. And for the first time, they were being asked to do more. And what happened was we go into the fourth quarter saying, wow, this might be the first time in like the 70-year history of the Broncos that they get shut out at home. Yeah. And luckily they avoided that. But you're just sitting there at that moment saying, like, this is just as bad as it's been. Your quarterback is 4 for 14 for 27 yards. Like, there are problems. And you just hope at some point they get fixed. They haven't been fixed yet. At least you play a terrible team this week.
There's an interesting comparison I heard, and it was talking about, the Broncos being such a lopsided team, playing an incredible defense, but, one of the best defenses in the NFL, and then one of the worst offenses in the NFL. It reminds me, going to a baseball analogy, of the Seattle Mariners this year that had the best pitching staff across all of baseball. Their pitchers averaged like a sub-2 ERA across the entire season, and yet they had the very worst offense in all of Major League Baseball and didn't end up making the postseason. And and you think about that, and you're like, and Mariners fans are getting pissed. I mean, I have family in Seattle, and so like they're freaking out because you're like, we're wasting this incredible pitching rotation on this garbage offense, and I feel like that's how Broncos fans feel. You're wasting a Super Bowl contending defense by having one of the worst offenses in football. And so there's going to be emotions that come with that because you're just like, we have part of it. Like, we've got a piece of that, and we just can't piece it all together. I think it's also one of the reasons why Avs fans are so upset right now. The Avs are very much in a Stanley Cup window. They have some of the best players, the best defensemen in the NHL, two of the other best players in the NHL with McKinnon and and Nichushkin when he's healthy and back, and yet your goaltender can't save a goal to save his life right now. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I want to, though, after this break. There's an interesting story about the mayor of New York and some hate that he's getting that I think we can connect back to a little CU-CSU rivalry. So I want to talk about that after the break. But really quick, before we get into that, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Empire Today. Empire Today, they are in the business of replacing floors and doing it in the best possible way. I was just watching Tiff gets set up for this show here just a few minutes ago, and she's like ripping chairs around the studio. And Empire Today actually was the company that replaced our floors in studio. And it doesn't matter how many chairs Tiff throws around before our shows. This floor is extremely well done, and it is durable. It's affordable, which helps too. And we know you guys at home, being affordable matters, and having high quality with good prices. They've got great customer service at Empire Today. They get you covered. They take care of what you need when you need it. They've got this really cool thing called the Virtual Floor Designer, where you can take a picture of your living space and you actually see what your new floor would look like in that space. That's a really cool feature that you can use there. So check out Empire Today. Schedule a free in-home estimate, and all listeners of this show receive a $350 off discount when you use the promo code DNVR. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/DNVR for details. Also want to share some love with a new sponsor for our podcast. That's the Upswing Foundation, a really cool nonprofit, youth sports nonprofit that we're partnering with right now that helps connect people and, as they say, catapult dreams. They're based here in Colorado. They take advantage of our incredible mile-high training grounds, and they provide access to world-class programs alongside top-tier athletes for kids of all backgrounds. And I know when I was a kid growing up, youth sport camps was the greatest way for me to get involved and to just meet not only other kids, but also to like meet athletes and to get involved with great coaches and just to learn more about any different sport that I was interested, whether it was basketball, baseball, football, whatever it was. And the Upswing Foundation has you covered right here in Colorado. Kids can experience sports performance training. So if your kid is feeling pretty competitive and wants to just take that next step, they can actually get that performance training. There's dance classes if you're just trying to go out and have some fun. They even have recovery education, which God, I wish I had been more invested in when I was a kid, because I ended up my sports career, my baseball career ended up ending early because of a lack of recovery regimen, for lack of a better way of putting it. And so I wish that I had learned at a young age how to recover better. They have a really cool recovery education program through the Upswing Foundation. So you got to RSVP before October 18th to reserve your spot. Those spots are going up quickly as well. So athletes under the age of 18 can sign up for classes at upswingfoundation.org/TDSP, or by using the Upswing Foundation app. DNVR listeners can also get 20% off all services when you use promo code DNVR20 at checkout. That's Upswing. They also offer scholarships to qualifying athletes under the age of 18 to train in sports performance, dance, and recovery in their state-of-the-art athletic facility in Centennial, Colorado. Deadline to apply for the winter period is October 11th, so be sure to check them out. All right. I don't know if you saw this, but the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, he's been in some trouble politically recently. I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. Yeah, he there's been some like big grand jury trial going on. I believe the word corruption was being thrown around. So that's been going on. We're not here to talk about the politics of it, although I'm sure there are people in the chat would love if we did that. He got in trouble for something different, though, over the weekend. The mayor of New York, Eric Adams, has two teams that he's representing in the postseason right now, the Yankees and the Mets. And he showed up, I don't know if it was at a press conference or a game or whatever it was, but he showed up wearing a dual logoed New York Mets, New York Yankees logoed hat. And people are lighting him up on social media. And I think rightfully so. Like, I get it. You're playing the politics game. You're trying to say I'm not biased one side or the other. But like, come on, man. Like, are you going to put the Yankees and Mets on the same hat? So I wanted to make the comparison of, like, I was thinking about, like, what's that connection to Colorado? Like, if someone was to wear something like that in Colorado, it has to be CU-CSU. Like, if someone wore if, like, Governor Polis wore a CU-CSU combo hat, like, that has to be the equivalent. Like, and fans would absolutely hate that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just a very slimy politician thing to do. When you just don't have, like, I don't know, like, you don't have your own personality or opinion or anything. It's just like, I support both teams. And obviously this
I'm here
guy,
for, I hope both teams don't lose.
Based on a quick Google, sounds like the kind of thing that this slimy mayor type guy would do. I do think that, first of all, I don't know if he's from New York. If you're from New York, you should have a stance.
Yeah.
You should either be a Yankees guy or Mets guy.
Yeah.
I don't think that the people in New York, this is something, Montanans have this weird thing where they elect a bunch of people who aren't from Montana.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't really know why that is. But I kind of get if you don't like grow up in the rivalry, you wouldn't have a position. But at that point, like, why are you even wearing a hat?
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't just be yourself, and there's nobody who's actually a Yankees and Mets fan.
Alyssa, I pulled up a picture. I sent a picture in the Slack of Mayor Adams wearing this hat.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying.
No, you're good. You're good. It's just like, it's one of those things where I don't know. That's why sports is so engaging for fans. And if there wasn't a huge rivalry, I wouldn't have an issue with it. Like if it was like, I don't know. I don't even know what the example would be, but like if it wasn't if it wasn't as intensely, hot-blooded as it is between the Mets and the Yankees, I wouldn't have an issue with it. Or maybe if he was saying, like, oh, these two teams are playing an unrelated series, at the same time. But the fact that these two teams have a chance to play at the World Series, it's like, dude, what are we doing? I just don't see that. The only acceptable format in which I see this being, where I see someone wearing a dual logo, is if it is a parent of two kids who are playing each other on opposing teams.
Wow.
Like if Mayor Adams had two sons and one of them was playing on the Mets and one was playing on the Yankees, then we understand that because you have, skin in both games. But as just like a politician saying, hey, I don't want to ripple the water here. I don't want to rock the boat. There's no other way. There's no other way that flies.
Yeah.
To
me, it's as simple as you should never wear a logo for a team that you aren't a fan of.
Yeah.
Like you should never, ever, ever do that. And I know there's probably some like minor league baseball hat guys who are pissed off, but it is what it is.
Oh God!
If you're not a fan, you don't wear it.
You're insulting the entire LA Dodgers fan base and New York Yankees fan base.
So true.
The battle of cultures. It's why I made the argument yesterday on my DNVR Rockies pod that if it was the Mets and Yankees World Series, I actually think that's bad for baseball. I think it needs to be Yankees Dodgers World Series because of the two biggest fan bases in the world, the two biggest cultural fan bases in the world for baseball going head to head. Do you agree with that? I mean, do you think that...
I can't get... that's just everything of it. That's like saying, like, what's best for basketball is the Lakers and the Celtics playing.
Fair.
Like, I just can't support that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, so you can't wear a logo of a team you're not a fan of, and you can't be a fan of both those teams. So it should be an impossible hat.
You're right. And you're totally right. Like, when the Dodgers were playing the Padres, I was rooting heavily for the Padres to knock out the Dodgers in the first round. And I don't like the Padres by any means, but I hate the Dodgers. I think from a good for the sport type of thing, without the Rockies being in there, without a team, without a horse in the race, I think the Dodgers and Yankees would be a very it would be a big series to watch.
It would be, and they do numbers.
I just don't like the idea of having Yankees Mets in the World Series, like where it's like that's one fan base. Like it's just one city of fan bases. Yeah. Sure, like I'll watch it, but like I don't know. It's just I don't know. It doesn't have the same vibes. So
it's all like it's good for the sport for LeBron to be in the finals.
Yeah.
Like that's just one of those things where it's like if you say that, I hate you.
Yeah.
Like I can't get behind that. You know?
I do have to say, to put that out there for everyone, I'm hiding it here. I am wearing a Kobe,
tough.
Michael Jordan, LeBron shirt. I am not a fan. I will put this out there. I am not a fan of those teams, and I'm definitely not a LeBron James fan. I am a Kobe and Michael Jordan fan, growing up. So I want to put that out there for the world. You guys can hate on me all you want. I'm still a diehard Nuggets fan. Also this is a cool shirt, so I got to go with the cultural vibes as we were talking about.
Fair enough.
It's what's happening.
you're going to have depth next year. Like, you're going to have enough guys that you're going to get through the season without having to worry. Like, I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of Tanner Gordon, for example. With whom I appreciate his contribution, but you're just not going to see much of that because you have so many guys who are ready. You bring in the prospects. You look at what the bullpen did late in the year. I think they have all the pieces together, and I think they're kind of on the right trajectory.
Yeah,
and so
I agree.
This is just one more kind of note in that column.
I think Rockies fans are and baseball fans in general here in Colorado, which there are a lot of you out there. I say that all the time. Colorado is a baseball state.
Yeah.
It just feels, it's almost like we have PTSD. Where it's like for 3 years or longer, we've felt like this might be the year. This might be the offseason. And you see teams like the Royals or the Rangers last year when they went and won the World Series where you're like, oh, hey, they did it. Like, they sucked the year before that, and now look at them. And you think maybe the Rockies can miraculously turn things around. I do feel like the vibes are a little bit different going into this offseason because we saw so many young guys start to find their rhythm. And I think if the Rockies can put the 3 Gold Glove finalists into the All-Star game next year, we're having a different conversation. I do think Brenton Doyle, Tovar, and McMahon, and maybe even Tolia, if Tolia can get his bat around, his defense I have no concerns of. I think the Rockies realistically could have 4 All-Stars vying for a spot next year. And
you look at the bullpen, too.
And the bullpen's...
Like, could Halverson get hot?
He could.
Could Peralta get hot? Like, at some point, like, some teams do get relievers into the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Like, all it takes is, like,
to,
all those guys are capable of getting hot there. Like, I just think across the board, they just have so much young talent right now. Plus, they have, like, 6 of the top 100 prospects in baseball. Including, like, Dollander's number 5. You got Condon at, like, 12 or something.
Yeah.
Like, they've got the high-end prospects. They've got the depth prospects. They've got the guys who've come up. Of course, some of those guys are going to miss. I mean, we've kind of lived through that with Amador. Maybe he bounces back. Maybe Nolan Jones bounces back. But even if they don't, like,
dude, if Nolan Jones bounces back, man, like, if he gets to prime Nolan Jones, that outfield is going to be a threat.
Totally.
Before you leave, I want to transition real quick to talk about CU. CU, obviously, a tough loss to Kansas State. But I would actually say that was the best loss out of all 3 of the major sports teams over the weekend, Broncos, Avs, and then CU. CU had the best loss out of all 3 of them because they played a tight game against a ranked opponent in K-State.
Yeah, I there's something to that for sure. I think the tough part is that every game is just so important in college football. Like, you're trying to be one of the 12 teams out of 130 that actually get to go to the playoff. And I know people get excited about bowl games and all that. As somebody who didn't watch college football growing up, all that stuff kind of feels like, okay, congrats, go play in a half-full stadium. Like, you guys sure did it this year. Go have your party. Like, to me, it's kind of you either get into the playoffs or you don't. And to lose that game just means that you pretty much have to be perfect the rest of the way. And you might need to be perfect and get pretty lucky as well. And so I think that they're encouraging parts of that loss. Like, that's a good team, and you played them tight to the end. At the same time, this was kind of the peak year, I think, before you lose Travis Hunter, before you lose Shador, and the season isn't over, but the season is now very close to over. And so while it's like, I feel better about how good the team is, I also am struggling to see how they actually do the deal this year.
Well, that's why college football is so hard too, because you have turnover like that you don't have in the NFL. Where Shador and Travis Hunter and Sander, like they're graduating and they're going into the draft, and you're like, okay, well, what is the team going to look like next year? Are we starting from scratch? Like, I mean, Prime is a master when it comes to recruiting, but still, like, your team is. The whole success of your team is based around your offense. It's the opposite of the Broncos, and your quarterback specifically. And so, I think it was a tough loss, but still from a fan perspective, you hate to lose that game, but you still felt very invested in that game. You weren't booing the team,
Totally.
you were right there with them. Real quick before you leave, CU men's basketball season's right around the corner, which is wild to me. I know Harrison's going to be jumping on here to talk about the Nuggets here in a second, and some other storylines around that. But CU men's basketball, their schedule came out, and they might have one of the toughest, if not the toughest, schedule in all of college basketball. I'm going to go through a list of their ranked opponents that they're playing this year. They play Kansas twice. They play UConn once, Houston, Iowa State, Baylor, North Carolina, Arizona, Auburn, and Cincinnati. And that's not including the Maui Invitational Tournament that ends up always having like Gonzagas and teams like that. That is a insane lineup for CU to have of teams to face.
Yeah, no, it's just bad timing for them. I mean, again, college sports, a lot of the time you kind of go in cycles, and some teams get around that. You know, Kentucky just brings in 5 stars every year, and then you just hope they pop. Colorado basketball, you have to build things, and because of that, you have these cycles where it's like you build up toward last year when they had maybe the best team in the history of their school. I mean, 3 players get drafted, one's a lottery pick. Like, that was a really good team. Now, the flip side of that is when you lose all those guys, now all of a sudden you go into a down year and you have to bring in, and they're a young team. And like, I like that Yakimovsky guy they got from Washington State. They have a couple of fun pieces.
And Washington State was good last year.
Totally.
Like, they were a really good team.
Totally. And so, like, it's not, I don't think, like this huge mistake by CU to be kind of in this down year, but the timing of it going into the Big 12 is tough, because it would be really nice to go into the Big 12 and, you know, finish 4th out of the 16 teams and use that as fuel for recruiting. But, I mean, there's a reason they were picked, I think, 15th out of the 16 teams. It's not because it's a bad program. It's just that it's bad timing, and they're going to have a hell of a schedule.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and a challenge for CU nonetheless, because there is a big question mark on whether or not they can compete and then compete against the best teams in all of college basketball. Hank, thank you for hanging out with us. I know you got to get running out to the stadium. Harrison's going to be joining us here in a second. We'll pause, take a break, let Harrison get settled in. Good luck, Hank, out at the stadium.
Appreciate it.
We'll,
only one practice this week. Only a walkthrough too. Yeah,
I know. Little Thursday night football coming up. Little national game. That'll be a lot of fun. All right, let's give some love to some events coming up here, because we've got a packed house of events that's happening this week here at the bar. Today, October 15th. That is today, right? Yeah, today's the 15th. Nuggets preseason watch party and tarot card readings. I got a little introduction to the tarot card reading thing yesterday when I was doing my show. I didn't know that was a thing for you guys, Harrison. That like there's been tarot card readings in the past, and that the lady who does them has actually been pretty solid on, you know, some of her guesses.
Oh, it's very serious, and it determines the fate of the season.
Yeah, exactly.
So the Nuggets' fate
will be determined
season
tomorrow.
is decided tonight, actually.
Tonight. Thank you. Tonight. Yep. At 6 p.m. at the DNVR bar downstairs. It's going to be a rockin' party, preseason game and watch party here with the tarot card reading. And then on Thursday, of course, as we were just talking to Hank, we got the watch party for the Broncos versus Saints. That's presented by Bet365. That's also going to be here at 6 p.m. at the DNVR bar, just downstairs on the corner of Colfax and York. It's going to be a party, and the Broncos have a lot to prove, so there's going to be a lot of conversations going around. I know the Broncos guys here upstairs are going to be keeping you covered for that, and it's going to be a lot of food, a lot of fun, good food, good drinks, all of that going on downstairs Thursday at 6 p.m. You can find out and look at all of our events for the entire week. We've got a whole list of events at thednvr.com/events. I also want to give a shout out to our friends over at Bet365, because at Bet365, we don't do ordinary. And this is an incredible time to be a sports betting fan, because you've got pretty much all sports on the table right now. You've got, you know, hockey back in action, baseball still happening in the postseason. You've got football, basketball right around the corner. There is a heck of a lot of sports bets that you can bet on right now. And if you use code DNVR365 when you sign up, you can deposit $10. Choose between either a bet and get offer by placing a bet of $5 or more. Get $200 in bonus bets, or you can check out the first bet safety net offer by placing a bet up to $1,000. If your qualifying bet loses, you receive a match refund in bonus bets. It's just this is like my favorite time of the year to be in sports betting, and hockey is one of my favorite things to bet on as well. The Avs back in season, there's some great sports bets that you can have on the Bet365 app. So again, use that code DNVR365 when you sign up, and see why it's never ordinary with Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Harrison, welcome to the show. Thanks for tagging in here on the podcast. I was saying when this thing started, you know, we're not in the business of talking about bad vibes a lot on this show, but the Colorado sports just didn't give us a lot of good vibes over the weekend. So we're trying to. This weekend sucked. It did. It really did. So we're trying to shift that narrative going into this upcoming week. So I want to talk eventually about some Nugget stuff. We're going to get into that here in just a moment. But I want to ask your opinion first of all, because Carmelo Anthony, former Nugget, made an appearance.
Here we go.
Made an appearance at the CU game, and he was repping some Avs stuff. I mean, how are we feeling about that? Like, what's the vibe check on all the Carmelo stuff? Because it just feels like there's, it's in and out, it's up and down, it's just all over the place.
So he shows up to the CU game. I think it's the first sporting event he's shown up to in Colorado in years.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he's shown up to any high-profile professional sporting event since he left Denver. I'm not sure. I don't remember it. And he shows up wearing an Avs sweater and an Avs hat.
Which is fine, whatever, but different because...
Interesting choice.
Yes.
It is hockey season.
Sure.
It is hockey season, and it's not officially basketball season.
And the Avs were playing at that time.
The Avs were playing at that time. It was their home opener. I guess I understand that. Didn't know he was a hockey guy, but good to learn that. And his son, I don't know if you saw that, was wearing a Detroit Red Wings sweater.
I did see that, yes.
Also an interesting choice.
It's a who's who anytime you see the sideline for CU, but when I saw that pop up...
What I wanted to say is, if he was actually an Avs fan, he should know that his son can't wear a Red Wing sweater.
True. No, that's totally true.
That was, again, interesting.
And is his son a actual Detroit Red Wings fan?
I don't know. I would be pretty surprised if he was. I don't know.
Who knows? And the Carmelo Anthony thing, I'm sure it's just a game to him at this point. And, Avs fans, or I'm sorry, I should say Nuggets fans, I feel like we've all come to terms with the relationship, and I guess I can't speak for everyone. The people I've talked to seem to have come to terms with the relationship of Carmelo Anthony. It still can be annoying sometimes when he pokes at the Nuggets franchise and his time here. But I just think it's still just kind of weird to see his relationship with Colorado after this tumultuous, I don't know, tenure that he's had with the team.
It's a very weird relationship. All Nuggets fans actually want from Carmelo Anthony is to just go to a Nuggets game. Yeah. If he was to show up courtside at a Nuggets game, first off, I think he'd get a standing ovation. A lot of people are like, oh, would he get booed? I think he'd get a standing ovation.
Okay.
And I actually think that's something he's worried about and maybe a reason he hasn't shown up, because he doesn't know quite what the reception would be. I actually think that's a reason why.
I'm actually surprised that you think it would be a full standing ovation.
I think it would be. I think it would be a standing ovation. And if that happened, I think he'd be back in the good grace of Nuggets fans.
Yeah.
Immediately. Automatically. That's really all it would take. He's had a lot of comments on, his new podcast recently about the Nuggets and, just some things here and there about retiring his jersey and whatnot. I feel like he's almost actively trying to distance himself from the Nuggets still. And wearing the Avs sweater is just so funny because you obviously don't want to wear anything associated with the Nuggets. So you're going to wear something associated with another team in the city.
Yeah.
I just think that was hilarious.
Well, it reminds me, and I think sports is, you make the point of, I think it would only take a little bit for Nuggets fans to fully embrace Carmelo Anthony. I do agree with you. I think we as sports fans are very willing to let bygones be bygones if you give us a reason to. And I used, for example, Nolan Arenado returning to Coors Field this year for Charlie Blackmon's retirement. There's no love lost for Rockies fans with Nolan Arenado. He pushed his way out of Colorado. He said we were a franchise that wasn't going to win, and he tried to go to a franchise that, in his mind, was going to win. So Rockies fans have some disdain for that. Comes back to Coors Field and goes on record with me and some of the other media members, just giving nothing but love to Charlie Blackmon, and even reminiscing on some of his fond memories with the Rockies organization, all of this stuff. And I mean, I posted a video about it on Twitter, and the entire response from every single person was like Rockies fan wise was like, he's back, cool, welcome back. You know, like, yeah, sure, there's still some like, you play for another team right now type of vibes, but like people were happy to see that, and they were happy to see Nolan Arenado back and supporting a storyline of the Rockies. I think Carmelo's in the same boat. If you can give Colorado sports fans, Nuggets fans, a reason to react positively, I think they will. I think you're totally right.
Yeah, I think
we like
they
the
will
good stuff.
too. We do. And look, time heals all those wounds for sure.
It does.
So, quick tangent, but the Raptors are retiring Vince Carter's jersey this year.
Yeah.
And Vince Carter started his career in Toronto. And then he went to, was it New Jersey next? Or was it somewhere else?
I don't know, actually.
He started his career in Toronto, and then after that, he went to New Jersey. Yeah, he got traded there. And some of the stories about Vince Carter leaving Toronto are like, it's not that he just demanded a trade. He, like, stopped trying.
Yeah. Yeah.
He, like, stopped trying in games, stopped trying in practices, was, like, a disaster behind the scenes, and got his wish and got traded to New Jersey. Well, Raptors fans have forgiven him. They're retiring his jersey. I'm sure there's still, some feelings there where you don't feel great about it, about what happened in the past, but they're retiring his jersey. He's going to be celebrated. He's going to be a legend there forever. And so time can heal those things. I just feel like Melo, I think, this is my read on it, I think a part of him almost doesn't want to be back associated with the Nuggets.
Which is wild to me because, yes, I understand back in the day Nuggets...
He wants to be a Knick. That's what he wants to be looked at and associated with.
No, I totally agree with you. I just, that's crazy to me because the Nuggets are that team... And I'm obviously biased. I'm speaking through Nuggets-colored lenses right here. But it's... I don't know. I always thought like being kind of associated with a successful underdog story, a team that doesn't get the same love as the rest of the NBA, but still has success and still has so many. I mean, the greatest basketball player in the world, one of the best coaches currently in the NBA, like all of these huge factors that make the Nuggets such a fun team.
Yeah.
I would want to be associated with that. Like, look at Peyton Manning's relationship with the Broncos after he left Indianapolis. Indianapolis loves Peyton Manning as if he was their greatest success. And Peyton Manning says, yeah, I'll take a little bit of that love, but I'm a Bronco, because I like the storyline associated with that and all the other stuff that comes with living in Colorado for Peyton. But, I'm shocked by that from Carmelo.
Yeah, you might think that, but here's why I don't think he wants to be associated with the Nuggets. And there's probably a lot of things that go into it. This is what I think part of it is. When he played and when he got to Denver, the Nuggets were a scrub organization.
Sure.
Like, they were an afterthought in the NBA. They were one of the worst teams forever for years before he got here. And even when he was here, it's not like the Nuggets were looked at, and I'm sure he felt this. I don't think they were a top-tier organization. I don't think they were in the next tier above that. They were a pretty middling team, in all aspects. Even though they were in the playoffs, they did have success. They still were never thought of amongst the NBA community. And I'm talking players, agents, just people who would have been in his circle as, a top-flight NBA team. And I've got to think that's how he still views the Nuggets.
Yeah.
He still views the Nuggets as like the younger brother to a lot of the other top tier NBA teams. Even though they're not that anymore, I think for players of his generation, that's what they still think of the Nuggets.
Well, and I think there's still a national narrative of that to a degree. I mean, look at the things that Stephen A. Smith said last year when the Nuggets were, are going to going on the championship run. And, the national media, the narrative has this idea that, Coach Malone says it, like, we're a cowpoke, town out here in Denver.
Just the old cow
and
town.
Just the old cow town. And so I do feel like that still is a narrative across the NBA. And the NBA is such a cultural sport in general that, guys want to be associated with LA, New York. It's the big fan bases and all of that. So yeah, it's something that unfortunately that the story lives on for the whole Carmelo and Colorado tension.
It's so funny that he was at that game. I'm sorry. It's so funny, man.
Is he like really good friends with Prime too? I'm guessing. I haven't seen that.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
All right.
I mean, I'm sure they run the same circles to a degree, but there were some random people at that game. John Wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
CC Sabathia.
Hey, little former Yankee.
And Carmelo Anthony.
I know CC and Carmelo are good friends. Maybe they
they're both New York guys.
Maybe they carpooled over there.
They're both New York guys.
Oh man! All right, we're gonna transition here. Gonna take a break in just a moment. When we come back from the break, there's a new professional sport making its rounds in China that I wanted to get your thoughts on, and also we're gonna talk about the Nuggets preseason a little bit and stuff. We're getting a whole range of topics here. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more of this and more of the Denver Sports Podcast after this. All right, Alyssa, I sent you a tweet on this. I want to show you this because it's a wild thing. There is a new professional sport in China making its rounds. It's called professional daydreaming.
Stop.
Not joking. Literally not joking. It is a televised sport in China. Yeah, they measure heart rate, stillness. The audience watches and observes this sport and then votes on a winner.
They have a TV deal?
They might have a TV deal. Should that be our next beat, covering professional daydreaming?
I think D-Line would be the beat reporter for that.
D-Line is in, yeah.
I have all the ends. I'm connected to this world.
Yeah, he's
D-Line
very
is a professional.
experienced in the sport.
That's what it takes to be a professional creative. You have to be a professional daydreamer. I saw this on Twitter, and actually I saw some of the other media companies, national media companies getting on board with posting some of this. It's just a wild thing. Literally, yeah. It's just people sitting in a room. Sitting in a room. Everyone's sitting on the ground. Some people are laying down. There's different technique to it. They're all hooked up to like monitors. There you can see on the screen. There's someone standing up. That person's just dead. Like
that guy is winning. He's winning.
Passed out. And so, like I said, they measure heart rate, stillness. I don't know if there's like a lie detector type of thing or some sort of thing that measures like your brain processes. I think it's brain activity. I think it's just a lot of like heart rate. First of all, how do you train for something like this? Is it literally just one of those things where you're like meditating? And how do you?
Maybe you smoke beforehand.
Yeah, but is that a banned substance?
Smoke and then eat a lot and then compete.
Professional Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
This is the Mr. Beast challenge.
Right. This was probably a Mr. Beast challenge that is now a full-blown national sport. Yeah, I would think if you can smoke, if that's not on the banned substance list, I would do that. And then eat like a Philly cheesesteak.
Yeah, absolutely. And have like a specific line of topics. Like we prep for shows. Yeah. I have a rundown. Do you think these athletes, these daydreaming athletes, have a rundown in their head of like, all right, I'm going to daydream about what I'm going to eat for dinner tonight, and then after that, I'm going to think about, what's my next vacation going to look like? And
you might be onto something because I feel like this probably happens to everybody. Sometimes you're thinking about something before you fall asleep. Boom, you dream about it.
Yeah.
That's sometimes how it happens.
So I did see.
So maybe that could be the strategy.
It could be. I did see they were not there. You're not allowed to fall asleep. So you have to stay awake the whole time through this daydreaming process because that's part of it. You're daydreaming. You're not.
So you're
dreaming.
in just like a
so you're
state
meditating.
of comatose.
Yes. I mean, there was one of those guys looked like he was fully
that guy was
asleep.
definitely sleeping.
Like no chance. He was upside down.
Yeah, that guy was definitely sleeping.
Yeah, so that's maybe we do a professional daydreaming competition for DNVR.
We should do a live watch along.
A live watch along where we're all just sitting here silently, staring into
So they
abyss.
must have some type of sensor or ability to determine if you fall asleep.
Yeah,
because
I think
then
so.
You're out.
Well, your heart rate changes when you fall asleep.
There you go.
So I don't know if you see like those like Oura rings or Apple Watches or whatever. They like track your sleep and they give you a sleep score. Marissa is like locked in on her sleep score every day. She's like challenging herself.
Surprised.
Yeah, not surprised at all. I probably get like 40 sleep scores out of 100, and she's like, I'm 95 today. But so I think they do track it through like something like that. But Wild.
That's got to be, I mean, that is now number one in the power rankings of sports I'd want to be a professional in.
Absolutely.
Just daydreaming all day for a living?
I would say people with ADHD have are at a severe disadvantage for this.
I would think so.
Because you daydream a lot, but the stillness part of it is very challenging. As a ADHDer myself, it's something I've struggled with forever. So I think this would be a challenge for me. But, put me in a 2-hour econ class in college and I'm gone, man.
It would be really tough not to fall asleep if you're trying to relax that much.
Yeah, I don't know.
Have a big meal, sit down, you're ready to go, and then you accidentally just drift off.
Yeah. I would think the most prepared group of people out there for this, security guards who just sit there like at a door for like an 8-hour shift overnight, just waiting for something to happen. Like they've got to do some serious.
Baseball beat writers,
huge daydreamers. Dude, I'm getting into a Rockies offseason right now. I daydream for a living now. That's my full-time job. So that's just the way things go. Let's rein it back in here before we wrap up the show.
All right.
Give me a preview of how the vibes have been this preseason for the Nuggets. What are we feeling? I know Coach Malone was talking a little bit about like some of the conditioning concerns that he has. Like there's that kind of stuff going on. But is this all just like preseason talk? We're just getting through this so we can get ready for regular season. Like how are we feeling?
So they went to Abu Dhabi for a week,
which seemed incredible.
Which was great. Guys were riding camels,
as one does in Abu Dhabi,
dancing, having the time of their lives. It looked like, and I mean, look. If you are rich or getting stuff paid for by a team and going to Abu Dhabi for a week, like that sounds incredible. So they had a great time. Chemistry was great. They didn't win any of the games when they were over there, but I mean, whatever. They played decent. I thought at least the important guys did. The vibes were good. Chemistry was good. It seemed like everything was trending up. And then they got back to Denver, and it kind of felt like the real preseason actually started.
Yeah.
And so right now the vibes are not great. Jamal Murray is dealing with a knee thing.
Literally, knee thing.
I don't even know if you can call it an injury because I don't know if it is, but he didn't play the second half because it felt funny, he said. Aaron Gordon's got a little injury. Then Michael Malone says nobody's in shape. And now that feels like it's going to be the story around the team for right now. They're not in shape. So is there a chance this is all just preseason fodder? Yeah, of course. Like this could all be nothing and they're fine. But there's also a chance it's something. And, for us who talk about the team every day, it feels like it is something. It feels like there's a chance they get off to a little slow start, which would not be good.
Yeah, well, I want to flip this and say, the silver lining is preseason has shown us time and time again that it's not as meaningful, as deep as it sometimes feels. Usually, yes. There are moments, and this hopefully isn't a moment where that's the case, but we see where the Broncos had their preseason. The flip side of that is Bo Nix looked incredible. The offense looked like it was really good. And
he did look so good.
The Broncos fans are like, Bo Nix is the next John Elway. And then the reality check of the regular season came in, and we said, okay, let's take a step back. Yeah, he's young, but we're going to pause on that for a moment. So maybe this is the other version of that where we say, the vibes are just off in this preseason. Come regular season, though, Malone's going to have his guys ready to go. I'm hoping that's the case. But it is a looming shadow right now, especially when your coach is being critical of your team's preparedness. It'd be one thing if Malone was like, yeah, you know what? Like, I'm not happy with some of the game plans we're running out there right now, something we just need to fix. Like, we're going to be ready come regular season. But he's talking about the specific preparedness of the players.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the shadow looms the largest.
And it's surprising, man, because I would think if I could put myself in the shoes of an NBA player that coming off of that Game 7 loss and blowing a 20-point lead at home and how embarrassing that was and all the shade that's been thrown at you all summer, especially if you're Jamal Murray,
yeah,
who now has tons and tons of doubters, way more than he had even in the playoffs when he wasn't playing well. You would think that you'd come into training camp / the preseason ready to go, in shape, ready to fire on all cylinders, excited about the season. And I do think a lot of guys feel that way. I do. Like, Nikola Jokic looks great. Like,
yeah,
he's gonna have a great year, maybe his most dominant ever. But you would have thought for just everybody on the roster that you would have that type of attitude coming into the year, especially with how last season ended and all the talk throughout the summer. And I do think they're motivated. I think they do hear the noise, but I don't sense the hunger that I thought I might sense, I guess. And I still think they have it. I still think they're going to be very good. Can they win the championship? Absolutely. I think they're right in the contender tier. But do they have like the hunger that I was hoping to see and hear? Not quite. Is that going to derail their season? Probably not. But I was just hoping to see and hear that at this point, and I haven't.
Can I make a counterpoint to that about your? Because I agree with you. You said it. The vibes feel off, and the hunger
slightly off.
Isn't there. Slightly off. Can I say that like maybe I feel like, especially after the hype that has gone into the last 3+ years of Nuggets basketball, especially after winning an NBA championship, is it okay that guys are kind of like, I don't know, going with the flow maybe, or maybe kind of more even keeled? That's a better way of putting it.
It can be
because you've got a long season, and I think so often we see teams come into the beginning of the year and they've got all of this energy and all of this momentum, and that's great. I'm not doubting, that's obviously what you want to see, but it's a long game. It's a long season, and so if the Nuggets, maybe aren't as energized but are playing more of a long game, maybe that works out better in their favor.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's trying to turn water into wine there.
And I might even be over exaggerating it because we talk about it every day and it's just constantly on our minds. Like, they could come out and be incredible out of the gate. Start 10-0.
Sure.
And look, there are going to be segments of every season. Right now we're in the segment of the team is out of shape.
Sure.
2 weeks from now, we could be like, wow, the Nuggets are incredible.
Yeah.
They just started the season 5-0, 10-2 or whatever. So
yeah.
I'm not saying they're like definitely going to have an underwhelming year or a bad start to the season. I think they're going to have a great regular season. Just right now, it's kind of they're standing on a little shaky ground, I feel like.
Well,
just a little bit.
Look at where the Avs are. Like the Avs, you're talking about being in a season or a segment of a season. The Avs right now are in a, oh my God, I need to get my life together and find a goalie because we're going to lose 10 games in a row here if we don't figure this out soon.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to be what happens. I think the Avs are going to pull it together and make it to the playoffs and be a very competent team and possibly a Stanley Cup qualifying team.
You would think.
I just think they've started so slow and had such high expectations of this being a Stanley Cup window that there's all this pressure. And so
with the Avs, the problem everybody thought was the problem heading into the season just is the problem.
Yes. Yes. So that's the storyline right now. I think come the halfway point in the season, there will be a very different storyline. We're going to hopefully have Nichushkin back and Landeskog and, and Lehkonen. And like, these are all going to be guys that are going to change the narrative of where the season's at. So I agree with you. This is a segment of where Nuggets fans are. It's a segment of where Avs fans are, and it's a segment, going back to the first segment of the show, of where the Broncos are in their season. Hopefully some shifts and changes can be made. Hopefully we get a much more positive TDSP next week because this is kind of a bummer weekend.
Broncos are winning Thursday.
Broncos are going to win Thursday.
Guaranteeing it.
In Sean Payton's homecoming back to
Sean Payton's
New Orleans.
Personally going to play quarterback.
And hey, the Rockies, if nothing else, the Rockies got some Gold Glove finalists.
Hey.
Got a little positive stuff to talk about. Speaking of that, got Rockies podcast coming up in 15 minutes. I gotta bow out and get ready for that. Harrison, thank you for pinch hitting for us today, jumping on the show. Thank you guys at home for listening and watching. Be sure on your way out, give us a like, subscribe on YouTube. We always enjoy hanging out with you guys. Shout out to our producer Alyssa who jumped in late as well and has been crushing it this whole week. We love you guys. guys. Have a good rest of your week. We'll see you guys next time. This has been the Denver Sports Podcast, live from the Toyota Lounge. Have a good one, everyone.
We all silly like the mayor.